All right, welcome back to my channel where we cut through all the bullshit that these so-called YouTube gurus are feeding you. You know the type, these clown shoe wearing experts out there that are pushing courses while they can barely afford their rent. These YouTube channels that only know how to teach YouTube. It's basically coaches coaching coaches, how to coach coaches to coach coaches. And they're just selling the picks and the shovels without ever mining the gold themselves. And these people are literally the reason that I started this channel, because I've got a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers and I make multiple 6 figures per month on YouTube with multiple different businesses. And I've helped nearly 10 people make it to over 8 figures a year and over 20 people make it to 7 figures a year from their YouTube businesses. So I know a thing or two about this platform, and here is the cold hard truth bomb that these fake gurus don't want you to know. You do not need a massive channel to make massive money on YouTube. And what all these gurus focus on is teaching you how to get views and subscribers, and they're honestly pretty bad at even doing that. And then most people end up in a situation where they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and they get millions of views, but they're still not making any money. So this is total garbage, complete trash advice from people who have never actually built a real business. So I routinely work with channels that have like 3,000 subscribers and they're making like $50,000 a month. And then there's channels out there with over 4 million subscribers that are begging for Patreon donations like a digital hobo. And the difference is that one knows how to monetize their content like an actual business, and the other is just a trained monkey dancing for the algorithm's scraps. So in this video, I am going to show you 37 ways to monetize your YouTube channel. And I'm going to be talking about strategies that work whether you have 1,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, or 100,000 subscribers. Plus, I'm going to be helping you to tailor your specific strategy to your niche and your YouTube channel. And I went from being $300,000 in student loan debt to making over $300,000 per month on YouTube. And I'm going to show you exactly how. No fluff, no bull. Just the exact methods that actually work. So let's go ahead and get started right after you gently tap that like button. All right, so first let's talk about licensing content. And this is one of the most underrated ways of making money that just about nobody talks about. So I'm gonna give you some real life examples of licensing in industries that are more advanced than YouTube, so you can kind of see where YouTube is headed. And then I'm also gonna give you an example of someone who actually does this quite well on YouTube. So an example of real life licensing that has resulted in literally billions of dollars is the show Friends. So the show Friends is likely the highest grossing show of all time, and they have made billions and billions of dollars simply licensing their content. So they created the show. I think the show's been done with for like 20 years now or something. And every time you see Friends on the TV, that TV channel or that network paid Friends to play that episode. They paid for the licensing to show that episode. And a lot of the time they pay a whole lot of money. And the reason they do this is because people love the show. Whenever that show is on a network, their ratings get a massive boost. And although this isn't super common on YouTube yet, there are some channels that are doing this and doing this incredibly profitably. So an example of somebody who does this is this guy, Simon. So he owns a bunch of different channels. One of them is Into the Shadows. This is a channel that he owns, but he owns I think 10 different channels on YouTube. And he actually licenses his content out to a lot of different entities, but one of them is airlines. So there are airlines that are basically willing to pay him in order to show his content to people who are flying, right? So usually these people are not gonna have access to Wi-Fi. They can just watch the content and it's just right there stored on the airline system. And as you can see, his content is quite interesting. You know, he's got a lot of historical content. He's got some stuff about prisons, psychopaths, you know, looks like SS soldiers, gangs, etc. Stuff that's just interesting, and if you've got some time to burn, you would probably watch it. And he is likely making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year doing this. Now, from my understanding, he actually paid a guy who reaches out to a bunch of these different companies and makes deals to license the content. Now, generally speaking, this does work best with entertainment content, okay? And the reason for this is just simply because historically speaking, you know, the highest grossing show, for instance, is Friends, and that is clearly entertainment content. With that being said, you can still do this with educational content. A common example of this being done with educational content would be training videos for companies. So if you are making educational content about how to use a certain piece of software or something like that, you could license it out to companies. But this is becoming more and more common, and people are starting to make more and more money with licensing. Now, one thing I will note here, guys, I'm not going to go over how to do it, but I do have some basic instructions, which I'll put at the bottom down here, and you can follow along to these basic instructions if you're interested in starting this. With that being said, chances are it's only going to work if you you have entertainment content, and then certain types of educational content. Also, this is definitely mass market content. So it's content that just about anybody would want to watch, and that would basically be interesting to just about anybody out there. Similar to Friends, right? Friends is something that just about anybody could watch, whether you're a kid or you're an older person. Now, I actually did an entire study where I broke down a bunch of YouTubers' income, and I analyzed it from how much money they were making per 1,000 views. And I broke down what type of monetization they were doing, what type of audience they had, what type of content they made, right? So were they niche or mass market? Were they specific or general, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so if you want access to that report, go ahead and download it in the description and the pinned comment below. Next is going to be virtual workshops. And this is a really good one. Now, this one might go by many different names. It might be a mini workshop, a live webinar, a challenge, etc. But it's basically something where you actually make people pay, and typically you are going to be doing it live. So you will be showing up live and you'll be going through some information, you'll be educating people, etc. And they are going to pay to be there, and they'll likely be able to ask you questions or do some type of work alongside you during the workshop. So a couple examples of this could be like a resume workshop where you basically help people make their resume live. You could do a landing page workshop, so you help people build a landing page live. You could do YouTube content workshops, so you basically help them make YouTube content live, et cetera, et cetera. I think you can kind of see the picture here. Now, technically, you could do these live on YouTube and you would be making money from AdSense, but typically you are going to be doing this behind some type of gated community. Sometimes people can join your YouTube channel for a small amount per month, and then you could do it there. So I suppose that would be an example, but usually someone might charge something like $37 or something like this in order to attend the live workshop. And here's an example of a YouTuber doing this. So Amy Landino, for instance, it looks like she's doing a live workshop and she promotes it with this video. Now, these do surprisingly well. And if you think about it, this is pretty AI proof because, you could make tons of AI content and you can do that live. And, YouTube right now is being filled with AI slop, but doing a live workshop, that's something that you have to do live. And it's also human connection. So it's not something that AI can replace a human with, because you're going to have to, answer their questions, etc. And they're going to be able to tell if it's some type of AI avatar. There's nothing anywhere close to that advanced at this point where they could just, do it and have some kind of live AI avatar doing the work. They're going to be asking you questions. They're going to be interacting with you, etc. And that's why they're paying money to do it. Now, I've done these before and they're really good money. I remember I did a live workshop where I made around $10,000 with one workshop and I barely even promoted it. And one thing I will say about these that's really good is it's great if you want to upsell, right? So if you want to upsell people to like a high ticket offer, these can be really good. So you give them some value with the live workshop and then you're like, hey, if you want to work with me even more, I don't really do these workshops all the time, but if you do want to work with me in my coaching program or something like that, sign up for a call down in the description, pinned comment below, or blah, 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 something like that, right? But yeah, I do like these a lot. I think these are great. There is something very similar to this, which we will go over here pretty soon, which is called a challenge, which is usually where you do a series of workshops. And we'll go over that here in a moment, but those can be great too. And these are usually going to be anywhere from it could be like $7 on the low end all the way up to about $97 on the high end. And by the way, people who pay to attend, webinars, workshops, etc., are significantly more likely to actually pay you for your coaching or, whatever upsell you have for them. Because these are people who are buyers, right? These are people who are willing to spend money. Hey guys, in the editing process right now, and I just wanted to jump in to point out her landing page right here. It's pretty clean, right? Gets the job done. And the crazy thing is you can make a landing page exactly like this in less than 10 minutes with High Level. And this is exactly what I recommend to beginners because High Level has all these templates built in. You just pick one, swap out the text, add your own images, and you've got a professional landing page that converts. And it's not just with virtual workshops, it's with almost any type of landing page that you see in this entire video. And it's not just landing pages, you get the whole damn system. Email marketing, SMS, automation, payment processing, calendar events, virtual workshops, etc. Usually people have to buy like 10 different softwares just to get what Go High Level offers with one. So if you're a beginner or even if you're an intermediate, you can get far with just High Level and not have to deal with complicated tech stacks. And I even know entrepreneurs doing over $1 million a month that are using High Level. So if you want to try it out, click the link in the description. And I actually contacted High Level and they will give you 30 days free if you use my link. So definitely check that out. And you can mess around with it before spending a dime. Now back to the video. All right, so next one is a very common one. I think everybody knows about this. And to be honest with you, there are a lot of scams, unfortunately, but NFTs and crypto. So an example of someone who went really hard into NFTs was Gary Vee. He invested in a bunch of different NFT projects like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, for instance. And I don't know how much I need to even, talk about these, but there are very clever ways of using this and kind of combining this with other products. For instance, you could make an NFT that gives somebody a membership to an exclusive group where they can ask you questions or they can interact with you. And every time this NFT gets traded, you get a certain percentage. Maybe you get 5% or something like that. And then you, of course, get the percentage right when you first sell the NFT as well. So there's very clever ways of kind of combining this, and also just, selling NFTs and, crypto in general, making your own crypto product, or, doing affiliates related to crypto, or investing or trading in crypto. Lots of different ways to make money with crypto. Many of them are scams. If you don't know a lot about crypto, I would probably just stay away from it. With that being said, I love investing in crypto myself. I've made money with pretty much every single bull run, but you definitely need to do your research with this stuff. Also, there's a lot of crypto scams out there, so this is a great way to ruin your reputation if you're not careful what you recommend. So next is crowdsourcing or crowdsourced funding. Now, there's a ton of different websites out there that you can do this with. Just to mention a few, you've got Kickstarter, you've got GoFundMe, Indiegogo, etc. There's a lot more of them out there. But in this particular case, this guy, Robin Haney, he crowdsourced a course. So basically, he wanted to see if people were interested in a course. So he crowdsourced it and was like, hey, I want to create this course. If you guys fund me for creating the course, then I'll go ahead and do it. So just to give you a few other examples, Linus Tech Tips crowdsourced a premium screwdriver with community input on design and features like ratcheting mechanism. Marquise Brownlee, MKBHD, launched a tech-inspired sneaker with atoms using fan feedback for color and style choices. Unbox Therapy collaborated with Latercase, involving viewers in designing slim phone cases for specific models. Austin Evans worked on a gaming-themed t-shirt line with fans choosing slogans and retro-inspired graphics. And Sarah Dici launched a creative planner incorporating viewers' ideas for layout and productivity features. So this is kind of a fun way to create a product or a service, and it's a good way to actually validate that your audience is interested in the product or service. And basically the way this would work is you would first get viewers, right? And then those viewers would become backers. And then those backers would become students. After they basically told you exactly what they wanted, they would become students in this case, because this is a course. But if it was a product or service, they would become clients or customers of the product or service. And it's a product or service that they literally told you they wanted, and they helped you design, which is pretty sick. All right, next is one of my absolute favorite ways of making money, and that is affiliate marketing. And here's this guy right here, Thomas Gannett, who's making $1 million a year doing this, okay? He's making $1 million a year just recommending a product or service that he already used anyways. And that's the beauty of affiliate marketing. You basically just recommend a product or service that you already use, you get a special link, and when people click on that link and they end up buying, you get a small percentage of the purchase. So what he does in this particular case is he recommends this product called Go High Level or High Level. So I'm just going to call this GHL. And he explains how he makes money in this video, and basically he says what I'm telling you right now. He recommends Go High Level. And the awesome thing about affiliate marketing is there's like 10 different steps that you have to take care of if you're a business owner, right? There's like 10 different, master skills. You have to take care of marketing, which involves traffic, nurturing, educating, and lead generation. Then you have to take care of sales. Then you have to take care of delivery and product development. And you have to take care of customer service. Then you have to take care of ascension or continuation. And then you have to like hire a team, and you have to take care of the operations, et cetera, right? Like 10 different things. With affiliate marketing, there's literally only one thing that you have to take care of, and that is a tiny part of marketing, which is traffic generation. They do everything else for you, which is the wonderful thing about affiliate marketing. Now, with that being said, that one thing is very important. Traffic generation is probably the most important because it's at the very beginning. And that's why it's so good when you pair it with something like YouTube. I mean, that's exactly what Thomas Gannett does. And basically what you do is, instead of offering your own product or service, you find out what your audience has as a problem. So let's just say they have, right? So they have a problem, and if you had the same problem, you can give them an authentic recommendation of something that helped you solve that problem. and it just happened to be something where they did a really good job and you don't want to compete with them. And so you just recommend that product or service to your clients, which is a solution, essentially. And then if they end up buying, you get a commission. It's pretty much that simple. And in the case of Go High Level, this is a recurring commission. So every single month that they're on the product, you get paid as long as they don't cancel, which is freaking awesome. So I have made millions of dollars from affiliate marketing personally, and I absolutely love it. It's extremely passive, and you're basically making money just recommending stuff that you would have recommended anyways. So it's just a win-win situation for everyone. It's a win for you because you make money and you provide a good product or service to your audience. It's a win for the audience because it solves their problem, and it's a win for the company because they get more customers and they get more awareness. All right, next is a subscription-based Q&A. I've seen a lot of creators do this one and have a lot of success. One of them is Veritasium, and basically what it is they pay you a subscription and they're able to ask you questions which you will answer. Another person I've seen do this successfully is Graham Stephan. He basically had a subscription-based thing where once a week he would get on a live stream and you could ask him any question that you wanted. Now, a very simple way of doing this is to use Patreon. That's what he does right here. And you can see that he has over 13,000 members. And that means he's making at least $13,000 a month because this is his lowest paid subscription tier. But chances are he's making far, far more than that because a lot of people are probably paying for the nitrogen or the lithium package. So he's likely making $30,000 to $50,000 a month. Not bad. And one thing that he does inside of here is he does offer Q&As. And I believe that Graham Stephan did an income report and he made it to around the $30,000 to $50,000 range doing this as well. And it's just like 1 hour a week of your work. So it's really not that much work from you. And it means a lot to your viewers because they basically get to ask you questions anytime they want. Now you can do this on its own, or you can add it onto another product, or you can use it as sort of like a sales funnel to upsell people to higher ticket products. So they basically get a Q&A with you, and then in your Q&A, you can say, well, if you want more on this, we have a coaching program where we can help you more with this, blah, 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 right? So this is a pretty good one and it works pretty well in some niches. Another one is a paid in-person mastermind. And this is kind of a really common example. Russell Brunson, he basically has this funnel hacking live event and you can attend it for $997 and it is in person. So this is kind of like a mini mastermind, but he actually upsells people that go to this live event into a real in-person mastermind. In fact, his highest level mastermind is about $250,000. And this is where you actually get to meet him in person with a small group. And usually he'll bring in some of the best, highest performing people in the world, like Tony Robbins, to this mastermind as well. And you can directly ask them questions and interact with them, which is pretty cool. Now, I have paid for several of these and I find them to be incredibly good when it comes to networking. I've paid for a $50,000 mastermind. I've paid for like a $40,000 mastermind. And I think one of the most valuable things is just getting to network with people in person. So these usually are not going to be on their own. These are usually going to be upsells for a main product, which usually costs quite a bit less. So in this case, his main product is the $997 in-person event. And then of course you could even say his main product is his software, which is ClickFunnels. But then he upsells a very tiny amount of people to his $250,000 mastermind. And these are usually people that are making millions and millions of dollars a year. So it's, completely reasonable for them to pay $250,000 to be able to potentially make more money. All right, next one is educational app add-ons. So a really good example of this would be Duolingo. So they basically have an app that helps you learn English better. Now Duolingo will likely be sold for like $1 billion. So this is like $1 billion company. And of course they don't only get their customers from YouTube, but YouTube is a great place to get customers. And it's also a great place to build your brand when people discover you from paid ads, for instance, which is likely the main way that Duolingo gets their customers. They're going to look you up, and if they see a YouTube channel that has really good content, they're going to be much more likely to buy. Now, a lot of the time, these will have a free version, right? A free Duolingo version and a paid version. So you give a lot of value with the free version, and the paid version will have some features that some people are going to be willing to pay for. So this works in some niches. In this case, it is an educational niche. This is also more of a lower ticket offer, so it's definitely more of a mass market audience. And to be honest with you, this is a type of a SaaS product which requires a very high level of skill, and it also is usually going to require you to get financed, aka get funding, so that you can spend a massive amount of money taking over the market share. So this is quite complicated. It's not going to be good for like 99% of people, but it might be good for like, 1% or even like 0.1% of people. All right, sponsorships are next. And this is a very common way of making money on YouTube. I think pretty much everybody knows about sponsorships. Now I'm gonna use this as an example. You know, I think everyone knows what sponsorships are. They're the ads that go up and they're integrated inside of a video where someone's like, hey, the sponsor of this video is XYZ, blah, 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 right? Now, sponsorships are great. They're a great way of making money. I don't personally like them. I work with like 1 or 2 companies regularly with sponsorships, but I don't like them because they basically limit your freedom. They also limit the types of videos that you can make. And if the sponsorship doesn't turn out well, you are legally obligated and legally tied to that company. So just an example of that, a very famous example, is just about every finance YouTuber, including some of the best ones. I personally think that Graham Stephan is a phenomenal finance YouTuber, but he was promoting FTX heavily, him and just about every other finance YouTuber out there. And that took a massive hit to his reputation and his brand because FTX made some very bad decisions. And they turned out to be essentially a scam company and people lost billions of dollars. So a lot of his audience lost money, likely because he recommended FTX to them, which sucks, right? And it wasn't just him. Like I said, there were tons of other people that did this, you know, and I feel really bad for him because I think he's personally a great YouTuber and he's a great source of information. But you can see even the best YouTubers can fall for some of this. But basically the way sponsorships work is, you know, they might reach out to you and say, hey, can you do a dedicated video for 5K? So that's kind of like a flat fee. And then a lot of the time there'll also be an affiliate commission on top of that. So, you know, let's just say 10% of every sale made, and that is per video. Now there's also 2 different types of general sponsorships. There are dedicated videos, and that is where the whole video is about the, you know, company, and usually those pay a little bit more. And then there are integrations. This is the most common type of sponsorship, and this is where you basically just integrate the company into your already existing content. But I will say, be very careful about the sponsorships you accept. I have avoided every single sponsorship scandal out there, and I've been offered a sponsorship with all these companies that, you know, have the scandals, you know, Honey, FTX, established titles, etc. I am super, super careful about who I take a sponsorship with because I want to make sure that my audience does not get scammed. Now, one thing that's great about sponsorships is they work basically with whatever type of content you make, and they do tend to work better with mass market channels. But you can see that, you know, educational YouTubers do a lot of sponsorships and also entertainment YouTubers as well. All right, next is another very good way of making money, one of my favorites as well, and that is challenges. So a challenge is kind of similar to a live event or a webinar or a workshop, again, paid, right? However, with a challenge, it usually lasts several days. Sometimes it might even last up to 30 days. Now, there are different types of challenges. You've got live challenges where you will get on a challenge with them for maybe 3 days in a row or 7 days in a row, 1 hour per day. And then you've got more automated challenges where, you know, you might have them do something for 30 days in a row. And then maybe at the end of the 30 days, you do like 1 live session, something along those lines. And that is the situation here with English with Lucy. Met her at a business conference, very cool YouTuber. And I'm very bullish on challenges for many reasons. One thing is let's be honest, like learning anything on your own is quite difficult, right? Learning anything, you're climbing up a hill. And isn't it just way easier if you climb up the hill with other people? Isn't it just like, just about everything that you've ever gotten good at in your life, whether it's, you know, a subject in school or whether it's a sport or whether it's, you know, at your job, for instance, if you got very good at your job, chances are you did it with other people. If it's a subject in school, you had a teacher, you had classmates. If it's a sport or a skill, like music class, for instance, maybe you got really good at playing the flute, you did that with other people and a teacher. If it's a sport, you did it with another team. Maybe you played basketball in school, for instance. So you had the team and the coach. If it's your job, you probably got trained by somebody and you had mentors within your organization. So it's just way easier to do this stuff if you have a guide and you do it with peers, right? If you do it with other people, it's just way more fun and it's just way easier to get better at stuff. And so that's one of the reasons I love challenges. And then the second reason I love challenges is it can't be automated, right? It can't be done with AI. It is automation proof. And so I see these types of things getting more and more popular as you see a lot of like AI slop content on YouTube and AI slop courses, etc. And in this particular case with English with Lucy, it's learn 250 phrasal verbs in context in just 30 days. So she basically teaches English to people who English is not their first language. And this is the #1 English grammar problem, apparently. And she charges $79 and you can join the challenge today and it is a 30-day challenge. Now these are great on their own. I've I've made over $10,000 with a single challenge before, but they're also even better if you're gonna upsell something at the end. So you could upsell like a higher ticket course or a higher ticket coaching program, or even like an agency offer or something along those lines. So yeah, challenges are great. Big fan of challenges, and I think many more people should be doing them, and many more people will start doing them soon. Next is fan-funded projects. So an example of this would be Smosh creating a game. It's Smosh Food Battle the game, and they got funded nearly $300,000 to create this game. Now, some other examples of this would be Kurtzagat in a nutshell, and they raised 570,000 euros for the Universe calendar. And they did this in 2018, and they've actually been doing it every year after that. Vsauce, aka Michael Stevens, raised over $250,000 for Minefield, which is a premium educational series exploring human psychology. And Smosh even had another game called Ghostmates, where they raised $1.5 million for it. So yeah, if you have a really cool app idea or a product idea or something like that, you can see how excited people are to help you to fund that and start one of these projects. Another one which I think is extremely underutilized is custom shoutouts. Now, you can do this with a website called Cameo, and you can basically have your favorite YouTubers give custom shoutouts to either you or one of your friends or family members. So I bought this, for instance, before for some of my friends when it's their birthday, or family members when it's their birthday. And this is something you can advertise on your YouTube channel. And if you have a cult following of fans, chances are a bunch of those people are friends with other people that also follow your YouTube channel, and they can buy custom shoutouts from you. So this guy, for instance, Weston Corey, has done over 1,600 custom shoutouts, and he charges $99. So that means, you know, assuming he charged $99 for all 1,600, he's made over $160,000 doing this. So he basically makes $99 per minute, because each one only takes about 54 seconds to make, which is pretty nuts. That's pretty good money per minute. And he's not the only one. There's some people that charge like $1,000 a minute to do this. For instance, Mr. Wonderful charges a ton of money for custom shoutouts. So this is a very easy way of making money, and it doesn't take that much of your time. Another website that's similar to this, but it's a little bit more educational, is Minect. And on this one, it's not necessarily a shout out, it's more of just a question, right? So you will pay somebody maybe $200 to answer a question. This website was created by Patrick Bet David, who owns the YouTube channel Valuetainment. And yeah, it's basically a way of being able to ask some of the smartest people and most successful people in the world questions to solve your problems. Next is AdSense, and this one is pretty self-explanatory. It's how much you make for the ads that show up on your channel. For instance, I think this last month we made about 62,000, and that's in the last 28 days. So it was probably more around like 65 to 67,000. And one thing I will say about this is you absolutely need to be enabling monetization, and you need to be enabling every single type of monetization and putting as many ad slots as possible in your videos. The reason for this is because this is the main way that YouTube makes money, and you want YouTube to be making money. Why would they promote your content if they're not making money? So you should absolutely be enabling this every single time. I've seen this over and over again where people don't have monetization enabled, and pretty much the moment they enable monetization, their views jump by double or even triple. So definitely enable monetization, enable all types of ads, and put ad slots as much as you can, usually every like 90 to 160 seconds. All right, another really good way of making money is celebrity and influencer brand licensing. So some examples of celebrities doing this would be The Rock with his tequila brand. It would also be Conor McGregor with his Proper 12 whiskey brand, and of course, Mr. Beast with Mr. Beast Burger and Feastables. So I think Feastables was much more popular than Mr. Beast Burger. And then of course you've got Prime by Logan Paul and KSI. And these could end up being like multi-billion-dollar companies. Now, typically what you're going to do is you are actually going to be using a commodity, so something that is essentially commoditized, like tequila or burgers or chocolates. And of course you have to make a good product, but you're basically going to put your brand or your license on it, and you're going to be able to sell it for way more. Another example of someone who did this is Kylie Jenner, and she made literally billions of dollars just putting her brand on different types of makeup or beauty related products. So this can be really, really good, especially in the entertainment niche, right? So this is good for entertainment channels. And of course it's good for mass market channels that target a broad audience. Another one that is enough different that I actually, put it on a separate one is gonna be licensed music and sound effects. So YouTube has been really getting into this lately, where basically you can put up music and YouTube will scan all the different YouTube videos and make sure that nobody is using your your music without your permission. And if they are using your music without your permission, then you can actually take a piece of their monetization, right? You can take a piece of the AdSense that they would have gotten, which is pretty interesting. But with that being said, you're also allowed to put that on websites like YouTube and other music or sound related websites like Epidemic Sound. And every time someone uses that, you get a small commission from it. So it's kind of similar to a royalty. It's very similar to this, and it is a way that people are making money, and people are starting to make some pretty good money from it. Now, this one is especially good right now for shorts. So if people use your music in shorts, you can get paid from that. And a lot of the time there are certain types of music that people use over and over again in shorts because they're so effective and they bring up a certain emotional state, and you can get paid every single time people use that. All right, next is platform licensing. And this is similar to the licensing that we were talking about before, but a lot of the time this is going to be a little bit more educational. So an example of a channel that did this is Crash Course. So Crash Course makes educational kind of animated content, and they actually licensed out their content to PBS. So people are able to go on PBS's website and they're able to consume Crash Course's content, and PBS pays Crash Course when people do that. Now you can also work with companies in some cases and make educational content, and then, you know, the people that consume the educational content, you get paid for that. And believe it or not, that is actually a massive business right now. All right, next is group memberships. And this is another one that I really like. This is especially effective in certain niches. So one group membership that I'm a part of is Invest Answers. So he basically has a group membership where he talks about his investments and why he's making them. And I really like his stuff. I think it's great. I've been following his stuff for a long time, and he has different tiers to his memberships. So he's got like a $74 a month one, a $174 a month one, $59 a month one, and a $19 a month one. And a lot of the time, this might be built on a private Discord community or on Patreon or on several other different types of websites like School or WAP. But yeah, group memberships, I think this is the future. One reason for that is because it's MRR. And pretty much all industries at some point move towards MRR. And I think the info product industry is no exception to that. Additionally, it's more social because you are basically doing it with a group of people. Nobody wants to sit for like 100 hours consuming a course on their own. People would like to consume courses or content or get educated with other people for reasons that I mentioned before. And number three, I think it's much more sellable. So you can actually sell something like this because it is recurring income. So yeah, group memberships I think are going to be great. And additionally, I'll say one more thing about these is they're great for upsells. You can upsell people to higher ticket offers, higher ticket products and services if they want more. Then you got low ticket products. These can be really good. So some examples of these are Notion templates. You know, this is what Thomas Frank does, for instance. He actually started a second channel and it made more money than his first channel, which is Thomas Frank, which has 3 million subscribers. And his second channel only had like 100, 200,000 subscribers and was already making more money because he focused on Notion templates. Another example of this would be resume templates. Another example would be thumbnail templates. I've seen people sell this, et cetera, et cetera. So low ticket products, usually channels that sell low ticket products aren't making a crazy amount of money, but again, they're really good for upsells. In fact, I know a guy who runs one of the biggest sales agencies in the world, and he actually recommends to all of his clients that they do low ticket products. And then he has a sales team that will outbound call the people to buy the low ticket product to, one, make sure that they consume the product and they get whatever they wanted, the problem gets solved. But for two, because they're trying to upsell them to a higher ticket product. So that's one of the biggest things about low ticket products is they're great for upselling people to higher ticket products. Then you've got medium ticket courses. Typically, these are going to be anywhere from like $300 to $3,000. An example of someone who does this a lot is Anik Singhal. He started this website called Learn, and he sells these medium ticket courses. And these can be good for things that are a little bit harder to learn, right? Low ticket is something quite simple, like a resume template or something like that, or maybe teaching people how to use Excel. This would be something that's a little harder to learn, like Inbox, which would be email marketing, copywriting, publishing, Facebook ads, or e-com. So yeah, medium ticket courses are great because they're extremely passive. You don't have to do anything after you've actually, created the course, except just update it every once in a while. But it's also saturated and it kind of has a bad reputation because you are charging still a pretty good amount of money. Courses typically don't get people results because they're sold for things that are quite difficult to achieve. Getting really good at Facebook ads, for instance, is not the easiest thing in the world. And so the success rate is quite low because these things are difficult to achieve and they do tend to have kind of a bad reputation. Another one is speaking gigs and engagement. And I have a friend who does this and he makes like several $100,000 a year doing this, and it's in a niche audience as well. And that's one thing that's great about this is it's really good for mass market, but it's also good for niche as well. So I've gotten invited to do a lot of speaking gigs and engagements, and a lot of the time they will pay you a flat fee. So they might pay you $5K to do it. And then on top of that, they'll pay for your travel, lodging, and costs. Okay, so any costs that you spend, for instance, on food, they'll usually pay for all of that, which is great. Plus, you might end up getting clients when you do speaking engagements. So it's really just a win-win situation. So here's an example of someone who does this, Dr. DeLaToro McNeil, and he does speaking engagements. There are people that actually get paid, $50,000 every time they do this, $100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars. For instance, a lot of Alex Hormozi videos, you see that he's actually on stage delivering content. And I can almost guarantee you that for nearly all of those, if not all of those, he got paid to do that. So that is a paid speaking engagement, and he recorded it, and he was able to upload it to YouTube and make more money from YouTube AdSense, and plus get a bunch of clients from it. So it's just a win-win situation. And if you're an expert, you might as well be doing these. All right, next one is software applications and SaaS. And the classic example of this is Russell Brunson. He was really well known in the info product world, and he started a software called ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels is a very well-known software where people create landing pages, and this is likely now a $1 billion company, which is pretty crazy to think about. And he started it all with his personal brand. A lot of it came from YouTube. So like I said before, software, it's not going to be good for 99% of people, but the 0.1% of people that it is good for, this is probably your most realistic chance to make it to like a $1 billion net worth. Russell Brunson will probably be a billionaire because of ClickFunnels, which is pretty awesome. With that being said, it is insanely difficult, right? Massive, massive challenges to creating a software product, maintaining it, making it good, doing the marketing, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very difficult to do, but if you can pull it off, it is insanely good. Next one is fan paid live stream competitions. An example of someone who does this is Linus Tech Tips, and he is absolutely crushing it with this. Let's just crunch the numbers here, guys. And by the way, what he's doing is tech build off live streams where fans actually pay to compete in building PCs live. And this is next level exclusive content that turns passive viewers into active participants. And it's kind of like a challenge, right? You're challenging them, and the person who wins, they win stuff like PCs, etc. But let's just look at this, right? He has 39,000 subscribers. The lowest amount of money you can do to become a subscriber is $5 per month. So that means he's making at least about $200K per month from this, at least $200K. And chances are a lot of these people are actually paying like the $10 a month. So he's probably making far, far more than that, like $300,000 to $400,000 a month, which is absolutely nuts. So the way he did this is actually really brilliant because he kind of took a page from Mr. Beast. He creates these competitions where live on camera, it's a live competition. You can build a PC or you can do some type of thing. And if you win it, you actually end up winning a bunch of money or you end up winning a free PC, etc. So it makes it very fun and it makes a lot of people want to do it. And this is really understanding that people will pay for experiences, not just content. They want to be a part of something, to interact, to compete. And the passive content consumption model is for amateurs, right? Real money comes from active engagement. And this is a great way to get people to actively engage with your brand. So you can see all of these challenges and all this exclusive content that he has right here, right? Scrapyard Wars, 30-day Android challenge, live stream VOD, and people get to interact with him, they get to interact with other people in the community, and they get to challenge themselves with a chance to win money or prizes. Super, super underrated, and I think Linus is an absolute genius for innovating here. Now, something similar to this is YouTube memberships, but combining them with something like a virtual meet and greet event. So an example of this is Marquise Brownlee. He has, virtual meet and greets where you get to talk with him, you get to ask him questions, you get to interact with the community. And you can see here that people join this and it costs about $5 a month. Now, he doesn't show how many people join, but I would assume he's probably making a good amount of money, at least like $50,000 a month doing this. And it doesn't take him a lot of time, and it's a great way to interact with his community. So this one is good for educational, but also entertainment. And it's good for mass market audiences. All right, another one is entertainment mobile game licensing, and the absolute legend PewDiePie is gonna be my example here. He's created a bunch of games. One of them would be PewDiePie's Tuber Simulator, and he advertised this in a bunch of his videos, and he's probably made a massive amount of money from this, millions and millions of dollars. And the cool thing is he probably had to do very, very little work here. They probably just consulted with him on it a little bit, and this studio right here did like 99 0.99% of the work, and PewDiePie just sits back and he collects the money, which is pretty awesome. All right, another way of making money is to just simply repurpose the content you already have and then add it to other platforms such as Spotify. So I've been seeing a lot of people do this lately, and it is a good way of making more money because a lot of people honestly just listen to your stuff anyway, so you might as well just upload it and make some extra money doing it. Now, I guess this doesn't just count with audio, it also counts with just redistributing your content in general. For instance, there's a lot of people who make entertainment content on YouTube and then they just redistribute the content on Facebook and they make a ton of money by doing that. So this is pretty simple, but it's just redistributing the content. In this case, it would be audio, but you could also just do it with Facebook and videos. And you could probably double or even triple the amount of money you're making from AdSense just by redistributing your content. Another one is exclusive research reports. Now, this one is awesome because it works with mass market, but it also works with niche, and it's typically educational content. So let me give you an example of this. So one example is Windover Productions. They work with Nebula and they do exclusive research related content. They're kind of like deep dives on Nebula, and you can get access to that content for as little as $3 a month. Now, another example of this is not necessarily on YouTube, but it's the biggest consulting companies in the world like Bain, McKinsey, etc. And it's not just them, it's also a bunch of finance companies, et cetera, et cetera. And they basically create research-related reports that businesses will pay big money to get access to. So yeah, this is super underrated, and it's also good for mass market content as well as niche content, which is awesome. All right, so my absolute favorite is high ticket products, and this could be in the form of a service, like a social media marketing agency or just some type of online service, like for instance, creating somebody's resume or coaching. And this could also include something as simple as freelancing. Now, in my revenue study that I did on channels and how much money they made, high ticket products and services absolutely dominated the market. So just to give you an idea, if you're making mass market content with a high ticket product or service, you are likely making anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per 1,000 views. If you're making niche content, you are likely going to be making anywhere from like 3,000 to all the way up to like 20K per 1,000 views. I've even seen as high as $30,000 per 1,000 views. So high ticket products and services are my absolute favorite. This does work for mass market and it works for niche content. And it's typically something you're gonna sell with educational channels. This one absolutely dominates. An example of this is Boyd Cluess. He teaches people how to get into very high paying cybersecurity related jobs, specifically PCI compliance. And this is a job where you can easily make $100,000 or even $200,000 a year, and it doesn't take that long to get into it. And he teaches people how to get into that. And he is making $1.5 million a month doing this. Absolutely nuts. So yeah, highly recommend high ticket products and services. This is what I do personally. I teach people how to grow and make money on YouTube. Check out my link down in the description and the pinned comment below if you're interested. Another one is nonprofit partnerships and grants. A really good example of this is Khan Academy. Absolutely love Khan Academy. I think they're phenomenal at educating people. I've watched so many of their videos before, and they get a lot of grants and they have partnerships with companies like Google. So Google gave them a $2 million grant to support the creation of more courses and to enable the Khan Academy to translate their core library into the world's most widely spoken languages. Really awesome stuff. So this is probably not going to apply to most people out there, but it could be a good option for you in certain cases. Another very common one is paid newsletters. And this is basically where you get access to an email newsletter where they deep dive and educate you on certain topics. So there's some platforms such as Substack, Beehive, etc. that are really good for this. I also really like it because it is what's known as MRR, which people absolutely love. That means you have predictable income, monthly recurring revenue. And there are some email newsletters like The Hustle or Morning Brew, etc. that are likely worth $50 to $100 million or even more. And it's a relatively easy business to start. So yeah, really good one. I like this one. It also pairs extremely well with a lot of the other ones on the list, such as affiliate marketing, sponsorship, or upselling them to a high ticket product or service. Another one, and this is quite rare, but there are people that do it, are university guest lectureship programs. Now, an example of someone who gets paid to do this is Jordan Harrod, and she has a guest lectureship at Harvard and MIT, which is pretty nuts. I mean, shoot, you would almost pay to do that because that's like street cred right there. Now, this is also referred to as an honorarium, which is basically a one-time payment made to a non-employee of a university, granted in recognition of a special service, such as a lecture, participation in a workshop or panel discussion, or similar activities. So you can actually get paid by universities in certain niches to be a guest lecturer. lecturer. Next is book publishing and brand deals. So there are some people that have been absolutely crushing it with this. So just an example is Minute Physics, and the company that owns them created this book right here, which is Minute Earth Explains How Did Whales Get So Big? And it's kind of like a children's book, and they've probably made a good amount of money from this. Another example, of course, would be Alex Hermosi's $100 million offers and $100 million leads. He's made a good amount of money from that. Another example would be Russell Brunson with Expert Secrets, Traffic Secrets, .com Secrets, etc. But this is a good way to make money. You know, there's people making millions of dollars doing this. But it's also, again, another very good way to upsell people, right? Upsell people to higher ticket products and services. And it's really a good way to build your brand, because if you're a published author and you have a successful book, that's just gonna open a lot of doors for you. So this is something that is kind of more of an indirect way of making money. Most people are not making millions of dollars a year doing this, but you become known as kind of like the person in your industry if you're able to publish a successful book. And this is good for education. This is good for entertainment. And it's good for mass market and also niche audiences. So it's definitely a good one to look into. Another one is educational event hosting. So an example of this would of course be TED Talks. You know, TED Talks, the channel, they host a lot of educational events. People pay to attend those, but also you could open like an expo. So an example of this would be Vid Summit. Another one would be VidCon, Grow with Video Live. And then of course on the Twitch side, you've got TwitchCon, et cetera, et cetera. So these are great because people pay to attend them. But on top of that, vendors will actually pay to have booths at the place as well. And in some cases, people will pay to speak at these events. So this is basically like the ultimate flex when it comes to being the authority in whatever your niche is. If you're the person who starts an expo or a live event, you are pretty much like the authority in your niche, and you can make a ton of money doing it. So you can make money directly and indirectly by doing this. Then you've got certifications. So this is obviously one where it could be educational. Usually it is educational. It's also niche and mass market. An example of someone who does this is the Life Coach School. So she has a life coaching certification program, and she makes $50 million a year doing this. This is Brooke Castillo. She is an absolute beast when it comes to life coaching. So this is another way of making money. Of course, this only works in certain niches. There's not every niche where you can have like a certification, but it does work for her. Another one is paid tutorial lessons. An example of someone who does this is Professor Dave. So he basically does live tutoring with personal explanations and personalized instruction. And then he turns those live tutoring lessons into more content. Absolutely genius. Now, this one is especially big in the country South Korea. There's actually teachers that are making millions of dollars doing this. If you're a really good teacher and you're really good at explaining certain things, you can make a ton of money doing this. And there are people like Professor Dave that are making good money doing this in the US or in Western countries as well. But yeah, this can be very good in certain niches. Then of course you have merchandise. Everybody has heard of this. Mr. Beast, for instance, sells a lot of merch. This is typically going to be best for entertainment creators, and also it's going to be mass market. Although if you have a niche audience and you have like a real cult following, you can still make money with this. But generally speaking, it's going to be entertainment and mass market. And I don't think I need to explain this one too much. It's basically t-shirts, cups, et cetera, et cetera. Next is going to be educational kits and branded equipment. So someone who does this really well is Mark Rober. It's actually pretty genius. And he has a Build Box subscription. And this is basically a subscription that teaches people kind of like science or engineering related concepts, which I think is pretty sick. So what's included is one new build it yourself toy every month. Also an opportunity to win a platinum ticket. Each box gives you a chance to win a trip to Crunch Labs to meet and create with Mark Rober. Then you can unlock a fun and educational video from Mark Rober with every box, and it costs about $27 a month. And it gets delivered to you. So it's kind of a way of learning about science and engineering live in person. So I'm sure there's a lot of parents that buy this for their kids because it sounds pretty awesome. And it sounds like a super fun way to learn about science. I know that Ty Lopez did something similar to this as well with the company Mentor Box, which is basically kind of like a book club. He sends people books and other material that teaches them about entrepreneurship or self-development in general. So yeah, this can be a really good option for certain types of people and certain types of channels. And then the ultimate option at the end of the day is creating what's known as a hybrid personal brand, because you can basically create any product and use your personal brand as the golden goose, right? So this is kind of like the golden goose, the personal brand. And then you create any type of company or product, and that's kind of like your golden eggs. So there are tons and tons of different examples of people doing this. For instance, there are people becoming president by doing this, creating massive personal brands. You know, you could argue that Obama and Trump did this. Then there are people becoming the richest man in the world by creating massive personal brands like Elon Musk. And then a YouTube example is Doug DeMuro. He created the business carsandbids.com using his YouTube channel to promote it. And he sold carsandbids.com for a valuation of $80 million. So this is just a auction site for cars. So it's basically just something that was related to cars, like a website essentially, where people could auction off their cars or they could buy cars. And he promoted this with his YouTube channel and he sold it for $80 million. So the hybrid personal brand is what I recommend to everyone because you can create products and services and then sell them like they're your golden eggs. And then you still maintain the personal brand where you can create more products and services. Now, the thing about monetization is it's very different from person to person, right? Different niches, different people, different types of content, different products and services that you could potentially sell. And I've had tons of clients that were stuck at kind of relatively low numbers. For instance, Sean was stuck making about $30,000 a month for over 3 years. Then he worked with me and within 9 months, he was able to make it all the way up to over $600,000 a month. And he did this mostly by simply optimizing the types of stuff that he was selling, the way he was monetizing. So if you want a personalized plan for yourself to monetize your channel effectively, I highly recommend that you book a call with myself or my team down in the description and the pinned comment below. On this call, we will figure out your current situation. We'll also see where you want to go, your desired situation. Then we'll make a plan to get you from where you are now to where you want to go. And we'll see if we are a good fit to work together or not. Now, we are very picky about who we work with. We only want to work with people that we think we can get results. So typically we work with business owners who want to grow and make money on YouTube, or we work with YouTubers that already have a good audience and they want to monetize the audience. With that being said, occasionally we do work with newbies as long as they are willing to treat YouTube like a business. So go ahead and book a call in the description and the pinned comment below to get that free monetization demo session and to apply to work with us. And also check out Sean's story of getting from $30,000 to over $600,000 a month within 9 months by clicking right here.